Eugenie Sage.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I understand this is a split call. My colleague, Gareth Hughes, explained why the Green Party was opposing this legislation at first reading, because it did seem to be a preferential treatment for Shell Todd oil. But through the submission process, we have come to support it, and that's largely because it does make the administration of the exclusive economic zone legislation more efficient administratively. It is largely a procedural issue rather than a substantive change to the decision-making criteria in the bill, and that's of course because it does allow existing holders of existing permits or privileges under the Crown Minerals Act to continue to operate while they apply for a marine consent under the Exclusive Economic Zone Act, provided their application is lodged 9 months before their existing permit expires and provided they lodge a complete application. But, Mr Speaker, as others have said, this is definitely a patch-up piece of legislation. And while we're supporting it, we'd like to highlight another one of the concerns that we're going to get another patch-up job. Because when one reads the 121-page EPA decision on Shell Todd Oil's actual application for a marine consent, and I haven't yet read all of it, but one of the things that's highlighted in the expert evidence around the decision is that there is no ability for the EPA, when it's considering marine consents, such as the other 4 that will come before it from other operators, to consider final decommissioning. And that's outside of the whole scope of the marine consent, because, as one of the EPA staff members noted, there is nothing in primary legislation in New Zealand which gives effect to international decommissioning requirements. It's not all about business continuance, as Mr Ducey and others have talked about in their speeches. There are major environmental impacts from both oil and gas exploration and the continued operation of the drilling rig, and what happens when it ends its life. And yet in the EEZ Bill, or the EEZ Act, we have nothing which controls decommissioning. So it's unclear as to whether the oil rig and the gas platforms can actually be left in place, and just what will happen to them at the end of their life when Shell Todd Oil has extracted all that it wants to. So is that another piece of ad hoc legislation that we will see coming to this House to patch it up, because as with this bill, the government has neglected to take a comprehensive overview of all of the requirements that are needed to control this industry. The other issue where there's a big gap, of course, is in marine protection. This House and the government has acted with speed to get this legislation passed, potentially by the 27th of June, when Shell Todd Oil would be in breach of the Principal Act, yet it's failed to operate with the same speed, the same commitment to actually ensure that we've got adequate marine protection. And in Select Committee last week, the Minister of Conservation noted that the responsibility for new marine protected areas legislation, which we have been promised by this government in every election, is now going to be part of the responsibility of the Ministry for the Environment rather than the Department of Conservation. So the concern is that we expedite special legislation to assist the oil companies, but this government fails to expedite legislation to actually protect parts of our exclusive economic zone. So we have no deep sea marine reserves. And if we have the Ministry for the Environment rather than the Department of Conservation, which of course has a function of preserving and protecting natural resources, if we have the Ministry with its sustainable management function now being responsible for marine protection, we're likely to see a lot of Clayton's marine reserves, where fishing is allowed to continue and there may just be some restrictions on fishing methods. So, Mr Speaker, we are supporting this bill, but there is a major gap in our law in that we don't have effective marine protection legislation.